Dimp Digital presents Idle Game Chat.
Cool.
So Logan, the Fantasy Gaming League continues to roll on for 2024. Two more games to get to today. One impacting your competition with Mr. Paper and one just sitting in the Grand Prix. Let's start with the more interesting one, and it's Paper's Persona 3 Reload, which came courtesy of Mr. Adcock. So he's actually got Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on the horizon and now Persona 3 Reload, which has scored. He could be on course for the MVP here, Adcock. An 89 at the moment, and who knows what Final Fantasy Rebirth is expecting, but probably an 85 plus you'd expect. So has he turned it around finally after being the butt of all jokes for many years?
Well, you pick good games, you get good scores.
It can be that simple. It really can.
So, you know, when you've got Alaskan Truck Simulator getting wheeled out, in some years, it's... You know, you're asking for trouble, I'd say. So, yeah, I mean, you know, when you look at some of these games, Persona 3, I know we discussed all this at the beginning of the year around there's always that element of doubt. Can they do this? Can they do that? But odds are usually on that they will. And they resonate well. So, yeah, I think you'd expect Final Fantasy to be high 80s, really. As you say, 85 is probably the low mark that it'll get. Anything else is likely to be higher than that. So, yeah, I think some good scoring games. But it can be that simple at times where if you put those well-thought-of franchises in that largely score well, you're odds on to get another one.
Yeah, I mean, it's not rocket science at the best of times, but people do make a hash of it. I will always say the back end of that Grand Prix is tough because you're just left with not a lot. You know, your first few should be good, and there should be no excuses for those. But when you get to that back half, it does get tricky. And Salmon's, which we'll get onto a bit later, has managed to secure what I'd call a decent score at number 10. Because who knows what you're left with down at when you get to the 50s and whatnot. But Persona 3 Reload an 89, that goes into Paper's team to join Tekken 8 on a 90. Sitting on 179, average of a 90 versus your 267 average of 89. You've got 3 games versus the 2. So it's nice and tight, which I think is how we like it. I'm sure you'd rather just walk away into the sunset like you did last year, but Paper adamant that he's going to try and pull this back. Persona 3 Reload in itself, I'm somewhat relieved. I was a bit concerned because I think I expressed this on the draft show that this had a lot of work to be done to bring it up to modern standards, in particular with the dungeons and whatnot. And I felt that could really drag it. Not disaster zone, I'm not talking like 60s, but I thought there could be a time when people look at this and say, yeah, this hasn't aged well at all. Despite all these other bits you've done, you've made it look nicer, but the core structure of it is a bit of a pain in the arse. But to see it sit on an 89 is pleasing. Now, it was only 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago even, I can't remember, I've lost track of time, that I said, got this roadmap, and it goes Cyberpunk 2077, then Persona 3 Reload, then Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Well, we're sitting here with Persona 3 Reload out on Game Pass, so that's where I was going to play it, but also available on other platforms, and I'm nowhere close to finishing Cyberpunk. So we're in a pickle because I've got a choice to make. Do I stick to the roadmap, potentially putting back Final Fantasy VII Rebirth when that comes early March, or do I just say, look, Persona 3 Reload, maybe that has to wait until after Final Fantasy? And then immediately best intentions have been dashed. Weeks.
I think you overcomplicate it for yourself. I really do, because
there's nothing complicated. Just play one at a time and play it when they come out. Done.
Yeah, but it's the playing it when they come out that's doing you. It's to play it when you want. Play what you want when you want is the mantra.
Don't want to play anything.
Well, you do sometimes fall into that trap, but that's fine as well. Like, you don't, because then if you force yourself to play stuff that you're not 100%,
that fucking division.
You fucking hate it, and it's torture, and it's like, why am I doing this to myself? There's no need to do it. Like,
No.
you get to a point with some bits where you go, right, well, I'm far enough down that rabbit hole where I want to see it off, and that's fine. But, like, I think you get yourself in a paralysis of analysis. I like that. Analysis paralysis, where you just constantly planning and never doing. And I'm not saying you're not doing that, but you get yourself
Wow.
caught up in this loop of trying to figure out, do I drop this? Where's that? Oh, but the roadmap that I created, the plan. And it's like, fuck the plan.
But you have to plan at some point. What do you think? Slip through the cracks?
Yeah.
No.
I think that you're in a very fortunate position where you got the time and the resources and everything to do that. Many people don't have either of those. So they can, I think you're in a unique-ish position. Not unique as in you're the only one, but
only man.
you can literally just look at, I've got a calendar on this, and it's like you've got this like digital calendar, I suspect in Excel or something, where you're mapping it all out and you got all this stuff. And it's like,
I'll keep an eye on it. That's what I'll say.
all I would say to you is if you want to play Persona, play it. Like, and then because you'll get the most out of it because you've got the drive and the want to play it, rather than if you put something in the middle of it, then all you want to do is get that game done and out of the way so it's not blocking you getting onto something else. And I think that's where you can get snarled up.
Where it's the problem is that Persona 3 Reload might block Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth. That's because it's sandwiched in between me slowly finishing Cyberpunk, which is probably another week or so away. And then if I start Persona 3 Reload then, as per the agreed plan with Ronnie, then we're left cap in hand when Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth comes 3 weeks later and we're nowhere near finished with Persona, and then it becomes a stress. So I think
It's still going to take Persona off though, and then you're up against the Game Pass.
I always say you got a year on that thing.
Yeah.
He did it with Persona 5 Royal. That was a year and change, and I made sure that the first available opportunity straight after Persona 4, I just jumped into it. So yeah, I think I'm going to end up pausing Persona 3 Reload until after Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth. But at that point, Dragon's Dogma 2 will be out. I mean, it ain't stopping. That's the trouble with these years. They keep rolling on, so you have to pick and
Switch 2 will
choose.
be out, and then there'll be something that will drop on that. The problem is, this is what I mean, you try and... It's really tricky. And this is what people moan about, there's no games.
There's too many.
There's too many, arguably.
yeah.
Especially if you've got all of the consoles and a PC and everything. There's too much choice.
There absolutely is. And not just that. Like, unless you've just been born, everyone's got a backlog, the size of... whatever, dozens and dozens.
Back catalogue,
yeah, exactly. This whole notion there's not enough games is a nonsense. It's interesting how the marketing works. It just pulls people to basically being focused on only the new stuff. Because once stuff gets past 6 to 8 months, it's sort of forgotten about, and very few people will go back and revisit it. When in reality, the game is still the same quality. In fact, it's probably better than it was when it first came out. But people always want new.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because it's like the hype train and stuff, isn't it? Everyone wants... I mean, it's not everyone. Loads of people still play World of Warcraft and stuff, and I'm like, I don't be getting that, but
they're paying for it as well.
Paying for it, and they're loving it, and they can't believe how good it is.
Classic. I'm sure they're saying that, but new stuff, I think they're like.
I don't know. I don't know what they're saying particularly. I'll be honest, but it's a good point. It's tricky to figure it out, especially. And I think this is what I mean when I say about you. Like, you'll play everything and anything, really. Like, there's nothing that's particularly off the menu. Whereas for me, I've got a very clear set of what I like and what I don't like and what I like to invest my time in. Whereas you won't do that. Like Last of Us, I'm not even worried. Not a concern for me. I don't even have to have it on the menu.
Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth not need to be on your menu. Persona 3 Reload not need to be on your menu.
No, so it gets
what about
cleared.
that Sebbins?
What's that?
That Sebbin punk.
It's not that good that I think I need to play it. I've seen it and I'm like, I'm not that bothered about it. I did look at it and I think, oh, that could be one for the PC, but
Cool.
I'm just not that fussed by it, I think, is how to put it. So
It does have some Grand Theft Auto DNA in it.
yeah, but this is. Do I need that?
Yeah, I think you'll remember when you get in those cars and drive around, you'll be like, cool, I've missed this.
Yeah, but I'm not. This is, it boils down to what I want to invest time into, I think. And
Well, I keep seeing Destiny flash up on this PC.
yeah,
Notifications grassing
this is
you
what
in.
I mean. I like to play
Rot.
what I like to play. Yeah, because rot is when you get limited time windows to play stuff, you just kind of want to do something that you can just jump on and play and not have to figure out and
Yeah.
work through, which is why a lot of the stuff that I play, especially at the minute, is of that nature. And why I haven't bothered picking up, like starting Spider-Man. Had all the intention to, but I'm
You
just
borrowed it yet?
yeah. It's been
Cool.
I've had it for about
That
6
library's going to
weeks.
start recalling things.
Yeah, well, he did say no worries, but if DLC magically drops, I'll be wanting it, which is
Yeah.
fine. Like I will start it at some point, but yeah, it's I'm just enjoying just pick up and play stuff at the minute and doing a little bit of Mario, and that's basically what my library consists of at the minute. I'm trying not to get snarled up with the world of games that are out there. Thankfully, Phil hasn't dropped anything decent on Game Pass for fucking ages that I'm interested in, so I haven't had to dabble with that too.
At what point does that get cancelled, that game? Or is it never get cancelled?
I don't think it does.
Even if you went 6 months without using it, would you not think, what am I doing here? I could just activate it as and when.
The thing is, it's like a lot of these subscriptions, they're largely small change in the grand scheme of things.
Wow.
So it's more hassle for me to actually cancel them. Although saying that, I did cancel my PlayStation Plus membership because I was like, that is literally money down the drain. That is definitely not getting used. So I don't need to be doing that. But I mean, even Football Manager, I still play on Game Pass. So
Right, yeah.
like, if I want to play that, I have to have the subscription, and there's always a chance something will crop up that I do want to play. But I am thankful he ain't chucked something on there. I do want a little palette cleanser though. I've been looking for something that I can
I'll
explore.
find something.
Yeah, it's not. There's nothing there obvious that's cropped up.
You have to dig through the doldrums sometimes. I think there's like a randomizer on the PC app. You can like hit it and it will suggest a game. Maybe do that.
Let's have a look quick.
I might have made that up. But
No, I just thought, I wonder if there is.
I saw something like that, or maybe it was a third-party website and someone had like plugged it into the Game Pass API.
They used to have this on what's it called? Back when Funhouse was a thing, they used to have a game randomizer thing.
Is Funhouse not a thing anymore?
It is, but it ain't what it was. I don't think they've really got any of the old original, the original DNA.
Yeah, same with Easy Allies. They've gone part time this year, and they about 4 or 5 people of their core 8 have left. So it is different to what it was when it started.
It's hard though to keep like doing the same thing with the same group of people, and people get different ambitions and stuff to do, right? So they kind of like, and obviously all the stuff with Adam COVID kind of happened, but
literal DNA.
Yeah, that didn't go well. But Bruce Green was just like, I don't really want to do this. Like, I want to do streaming and stuff like that. And it's the same as what happened to Achievement Hunter and all Rooster Teeth stuff. Like, they get new people in, but you get attached to that original DNA. Like, when they refresh anything, refresh Top Gear, and everyone goes, it's not the same. Can't be, can it?
Got Freddie Flint off. Well,
it's all right, to be fair.
Not anymore,
that iteration. No, well, he got a whopping great big payout, that fella, I think. But they've kind of just not really said anything and just paused it. Yeah. I think it's basically dead in the water.
Well, that happened quite a while ago, as I understand. And then I saw him at a cricket match, and he still had, like, marks on his face. And I was like, Jesus, what is...
It was quite serious. Like,
what has happened here?
Yeah.
Like, kept under wraps. Like, when Hamster did it, I felt like we knew more. I was like, he nearly died. He basically got brained and then got away with it. But this one, they've completely... I don't understand what happened. I saw it, I was like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but I heard like he had to have quite extensive like reconstructive surgery and things done and stuff like that. And it's like, well, I think he got like a 9 mil payout or something like that for it. But I think the BBC are probably like, we've had Richard Hammond do it.
Yeah.
Obviously, Richard Hammond crashed again on Grand Tour.
Fucking hell.
And now this, I think, is a bit like, is it appropriate to stick people in fast cars? I mean, it is. Look, it's an accident waiting to happen. That like it's going to literally like if you get people chundering around at 200 mile an hour, like something's going to go wrong. Is it right that we should be funding that? I guess is the question.
With my money.
Yeah,
I ain't got a choice in it. They take it from me.
I mean, I'll risk it for £9 million or whatever they're paid a year, like something ridiculous, like millions of pounds each. I'd do it, but they're probably just looking at it thinking they'll get the brigade come after them if someone dies. Like, that'll be it.
And like you
So,
said, but once bloody Clarkson and May and Hammond went, a lot of people went, I'm done with it anyway. So it wasn't like it was
been told at that point. Like, it should have just been gone, right, that's that. And
or rebooted into something different, like they did with Hammond and Clarkson and May.
Yeah.
Because if you remember before that, it was very much just a magazine show about cars. And then when those three got involved, they kind of rebooted it into what it became. And tried to redo it with Evans. Was he involved? And Joey from Friends was lurking at one point. And I was like, it doesn't... No,
they
think
got
of something new.
journos on there. But yeah, they kind of like tried to. They took away some of the bits that were very like associated to Clarkson. They changed it, but the core program was the same with different people. And to be fair, it kind of still was under McGuinness and that. But it was very artificial. Like they tried to replicate that kind of dynamic, and it just didn't really work. And I was like, what? Like I get why you're trying to do it because that sauce, that special sauce, is what made it so successful. But
it ain't there anymore.
It ain't there, so got to do something else with it.
Yeah, sometimes things need to go away and either stay away or come back different, and then you'll get...
All the same in the case of the Gladiators, though. That's literally come back almost...
Yeah, that's not going to last, is it? Let's be honest. That's not going to... That'll be gone very shortly.
All of us lot of a certain age will be like, get our little fill out of it and then go... Yeah, this is. We can see why this was fucking binned. To be honest, it hasn't really got the legs. No. But yeah, it is interesting how some of the stuff.
I feel like they've done Gladiators before, as well. Like in the 2008 or something, they tried to do it because at least it came out for a one show. Because there was a wrestler that ended up doing it, Magnus Nick Aldis, his name is, and he was a gladiator when they done like either a one-off or a reboot at it. So they've had a couple of bites of this cherry, and again, just let it go at this stage. I ain't gonna
do new stuff.
Ninja Warriors, they've done it, like stuff like that, where it's just reams of random people trying to do obstacle courses. That's essentially replaced it. Don't need these muscleheads beating up on normies.
I don't know what happened to Saturday Night TV. It used to be,
and Deck came along, didn't they? Done their takeaway, and that was it.
It used to be like a series of programs. Like I remember as a kid looking forward to it. You'd have like various different things. Like Gladiators was one of my.
Look out, Beadle's about.
Yeah, like I mean, look, some of them nowadays just wouldn't stand up. Like it's cheesy.
Yeah,
like, it was cheesy, but it was a thing, and everyone I feel like used to watch it and enjoy it. And now you look at it and I turn it on and I go, what is this?
Well, part of that's because you're so spoilt now. Anything you've ever seen or ever want to see, you can just find it and watch it at your fingertips. Whereas back then, you were held hostage to what was on the TV schedule.
Five channels, largely.
5 channels, VHS if you were lucky, that would only record at certain times and have 2 hours of tape. So you couldn't just watch whatever you wanted, and neither did you have the knowledge of what was out there. So you kind of just, out of necessity, just watched whatever was on. It was only going to be one of those 5 channels.
Through the Radio Times or the TV Guide and circling the stuff that I wanted to watch.
I used to do it with films.
That?
I used to go there used to be a film in the TV Guide that would do a quick review of them all. And I'd underline when they were on and try and record it. But in the VHS, you could set a timer on, but that didn't always work.
It was risky business.
Then they introduced those codes. I don't know if you remember them. The TV Guide would have a little unique code for the program, and you could put it into the VHS, and it would. The theory was it would turn on and turn off at the right time, and that was 60% worked. But again, you get that 40% where it didn't, and just be left there in tears when the last 20 minutes of Tom and Jerry got cut off, and that was the episode of a lifetime.
Yeah. Oh, a little walk down memory lane there.
Yeah. Anyway, Persona 3 Reload scored 89. Here's some reviews.
I wondered where we got to, where that what do you call it? Not called a chain, There's a word for it in radio. They call that links or something like that.
I don't think they can say that on radio, but that's what I'd describe it as. Total bollocks. Michael Hyam. Hyam?
We'll go with that.
That's a bit close to... Anyway, with a stellar visual overhaul and countless small but impactful changes, Persona 3 Reload tells a timeless story of tragedy and hope with a sharp, emotional sincerity. The word salad merchant. So one thing that's missing from this version of the game is actually they added the ability to play as a female protagonist. And that's not in this version. That's what I was thinking is really going to hurt it. It's like they've done this... It's a whole new scenario. Like the way that the relationships work completely change when you choose this other character. And that's not here, but people seemingly didn't care for it that much. Let's have a look. Jess Cogswell from GameSpot, 9 out of 10. Persona 3 Reload succeeds in elevating an unforgettable story with smart combat changes and drastically improved visuals. They haven't said anything about these dungeons, which concerns me, but I guess I'll find out when I finally get in there. But that's Persona 3 Reload sitting on an 89. I said Adcock has got that. It's his first game on the list. We're going to pause quickly to do the intro, and then we'll come back with Granblue Fantasy Relink, which is one of Salmon's games that has appeared. But this is Idle Game Chat, Digital's flagship video game podcast. In fact, the only show we do. Got Logan here and myself, Apps. Logan's the current FGL champion, former Grand Prix winner, resident referee until he retired. Clattenburg comes out of retirement to play the game, huh? That doesn't happen, yet it's happened here. But we're here most weeks. This is a bank holiday. I'm looking forward to that first one. It ain't far away either, is it? It's like 4 weeks. Already getting fucking sick of it. So that's not good, is it? For people to hear. But if they want to hear me moan more, patreon.com/Dimp Digital is the place to go. And you can put hand in pocket and join the community. Also, twitch.tv/Dimp Digital. Hall did stream some Destiny.
Did he?
It exists. I don't think it's Destiny, actually, but he put that's what he plays, so I can only assume that's what he put on.
Yeah.
And there will be some wrestling simming coming back as well. Keep an eye on it.
Crowd favourite.
Well, I don't know about that. My favourite.
Stumped him with it.
Oh. That's a lot of organisation, that is. Spreadsheets coming out my arse to get all that sorted. Keep
What's that?
Keep note of the rankings. Game? Yeah. Well, because the game doesn't have anything built in. WWE does, but it was so buggy that you couldn't rely on it. So I was like, well, I can't deal with this. Either it does it properly, or I don't be using it. Fire Pro doesn't have any of that, but there are spreadsheets out there that you can use.
Accompanying spreadsheets, like community created ones.
Yeah,
it's cool.
Which is handy. I mean, it's not. It is rocket science to me, but it's essentially a load of formulas that track. If you put the results in right, and it all kind of tracks everything. So that is handy. Anyway, Granblue Fantasy Relink reviews. I assume this is not on your radar to plays. Looking out for something new to potentially play, but this is not on there. Let's see what the reviewers say. George Yang from IGN, 8 out of 10. Granblue Fantasy Relink is a succinct story, fantastic battle system, and fun multiplayer options, Logan, that help it stand out. Multiplayer. Huh?
Fuck multiplayer. No? Ain't interested.
You sick of it now?
Sick of it. It depends what it is. Yeah. I ain't doing... I'm worn out by Warzone and Call of Duty. That's just dead to me these days. I haven't actually been playing a lot that's like strictly like multiplayer.
What, competitive
lately.
When you say that? Or do you mean any multiplayer?
No, I mean, I've played a little bit of Destiny, but that's co-op. Not
right, yeah.
PvP. It's PvE, isn't it, basically. I haven't been playing the PvP on that. I've turned on Rocket League, but I've only been playing, like, they've been introducing more special modes and things, so I've just been playing those. Yeah. Again, no competitive play. So worn out by it. Well, yeah.
That's the trouble. It is a bit of a hamster.
Mario co-op.
Stressful, that sounds.
Yeah, it's...
You got people blowing it.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on. I'm not sure how to deal with that at the moment. I don't know whether I might go back and play it by myself.
Yeah.
It's a weird one to play co-op because you think it would be fun, but it's not.
No.
Like it's weird how the screen works and all that sort of stuff. So yeah,
It's not in your own hands at that point, so depending on who's playing with, you can really get up your nose and
there's
cost.
a lot of blowing it going on. Honestly, it's like the brain isn't connected to the hands and the jump button correctly, and I don't really understand how that doesn't work. But there you go.
I let people off that don't play 3D games because moving that camera and that character and those shoulder buttons, but a 2D platformer, no.
It's about as basic as it gets.
Yeah.
And it's just, I'm literally sitting there sometimes for about 30 seconds watching her try and jump up on 2 platforms, and it just, honestly, I'm like, how can you not do this? Like, you've played Mario before. It's not like you've never played games. She's played Last of Us, like capable.
Yeah.
Like capable, and then we get to Mario, and there's 30 seconds of blowing jumps 2 blocks up, and I'm like, right.
Maybe she's one of those people that operates in 3D spaces better, doesn't like this 2D nonsense.
I mean, 18 years of trying to figure that brain out, and I still struggle with it. So,
not doable, is it? Stephen Mills, Destructoid, 8 out of 10. Granblue Fantasy Relink features an incredibly satisfying gameplay loop on the back of outstanding, fast-paced combat. If you're looking for a narrative-driven experience, this isn't it. So that's a real pops the balloon, doesn't it? But if you're looking for a fun grind that constantly feels satisfying and rewarding, that's exactly what you have here.
That's right up your street. A fun grind.
He's turned me off, old Millsy there. 8 out of
No
10.
narrative and grind. That is not your bag, is it?
That's absolutely not at all. Well, that's that. That's scoring an 82. As I said, that's number 10 on Salmon's list. So that's not a tragedy, is that what it sounds? That's pretty good, I think. To expect to get 90s across the board in that Grand Prix is difficult. Adkins almost managed it. It was last year, but blew it. But yeah, that's...
What would you... I'm going to put you on a spot.
Go on.
What grind would you enjoy? So I'm not talking about grinding for a platinum or like this. I mean, we could chuck that in there, but I mean, in terms of like enjoying a gameplay grind, like, because you were quite vocal, and a lot of people have been vocal using Destiny as an example, that playing the same shit over and over again isn't, like, you didn't like that. You liked getting to an endpoint there where you could do a raid, and the raid's done, you tick it off and you go, yep, done. But what sort of grinds do you sit there and would you go, yep, that's a bit of me?
So I think what it has to be wrapped up in a game or an end goal where I can be overpowered, if that makes sense. So it's not necessarily the task that I'm doing. I can pretty much do anything. I could grind playing Destiny, for example, shooting things. I could happily grind cutting down logs in New World. I could grind running around dungeons in Persona 5 Royal. But really, the motivation to grind would come from it making it easier for me later on down the line. Whereas Destiny, it never gets easy. Like, you can never overpower yourself to where it's actually easy. The game seems to always scale to a certain extent, and you've got other people in the raid. So I was like, that's why I was like, I'll just get to the bare minimum. Because I don't see these returns coming back to aid me. I'll let others do that for me. So, like in Persona 5, for example, I was grinding a fair bit to get levels up, and it just made the game easier as time went on.
But are you okay with that? Like, or do you just like, why are you making me do this?
Well, it didn't make me do it. That's the thing. That was a choice because I didn't want to feel like I could struggle later on. I didn't want to get caught out halfway through and be like under-leveled, which most games, if they're well-designed, don't let you do. But that's an old fear from older games where they would let you kind of wander into areas that you weren't supposed to be, progress far enough, and then you can't go back and you can't go forward. And that's the biggest fear.
It's interesting that you have a similar thought, because I like to, when I play games, I have this desire to do as much as I can to be as a high level or have the best equipment as possible when I take on things. So I don't want those encounters to be harder than they sometimes need to be.
Yeah.
And I sometimes try and do that. And if there's an opportunity for me to max out everything or do something to get to that, I would do it.
Yep.
Even if I didn't necessarily need to. That's an interesting way that we both have found to play some games.
Yeah.
Very few let you do it though now. Like it's not. There's not many games that I can think of off the top of my head. But even when I was playing like Spider-Man recently, I was going around the whole map, getting doing all of the side bits and doing all the collectibles because I would get the ability to buff and buy upgrades through doing it. And I was like, well, I can just buy all these upgrades, and then like I can just, if I need a certain one or I've got the maximum, it just makes it easier for me. So I will actively do that.
Yes.
To get it all ticked off and have. So is that what you kind of see as grinding? Would be doing something like going out and getting all the collectibles to get like rewards that you could buff your character with?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, there's a similar. That's one way of doing it, is to do sort of menial tasks like that. Another way, in the example of like Cyberpunk, is just to do the side quests, which have a bit more meat to them, but you get XP and you level up. Like, I feel like I've become comically over-leveled in that, and I haven't really gone out of my way to grind. I've just done the tasks as and when they've appeared, kind of tried to, as best I can, navigate through the weird timings and the urgency of certain tasks to make sure I don't, overcommit or leave things stale too long. But I think what really helped me in that game, this is something, when I finish it, I'll talk about more, is that it's got that DLC expansion attached to it now, the Phantom Liberty. Yeah. And that kind of unlocked for me about 40% through the game. And by the end of that, that just seemed like more of a later game load of equipment that you get and all that sort of stuff.
You loads of stuff early on that you wouldn't expect.
Unlocks implants that seemingly are for not fucking about, but for higher level kind of stuff that you can still, implant onto your character. So after that, like once I've got through that, I just came back to like the normal quest, quote unquote, and it's just been comically easy at times. If I die, it's from falling off something too high or really just not paying attention, or there's maybe there's an insta-death moment if you go somewhere you're not supposed to go, which is very rare. So even in that one, I haven't really tried to grind. I've just been doing the quests because sometimes there's something useful, narrative wise. But the fact they've put that DLC where it was and it unlocked where it was for me meant that my return to sort of the main game has been like, this is I could just walk through this now. Like, this is not even any challenge, which is fine. But in an action game, I'm less inclined to do that because I feel like you can overcome it with skill. Go back to Persona 5, it's turn-based. Yes, there's skill involved, there's strategy, but sometimes the numbers are just too, against you that you're just really going to struggle to overcome it, and you can swing things in your direction by being more powerful than you need to be. Because I'm not the brightest, so I'll make mistakes all the time, miss opportunities, no doubt. So if I can just get through it brute force, I'll take it.
Yeah. No, it's just interesting because I don't mind a grind, but I don't really know sometimes what I like to have a purpose. I don't, and that purpose can be completely flexible. But
what about? I'll go back. I'll turn the time machine back, like Minecraft, when we'd play that. Essentially grinding, like especially when we'd build something or was working towards unlocking the end of whatever we were doing, whatever goal it was. Essentially, we were grinding for resources at that point. Was that? And the actual art of that fundamentally was walking up to things and pickaxing them down. But obviously, there's a loop of the types of equipment that you need. You need certain number of stone. Like all this stuff kind of builds up and creates this multi-layered approach where you're always needing certain resources. But is that the key? That it has that level of depth to it. That because actually, when you break it down, you're holding the fucking left mouse button or A and just hitting things and picking the shit up and putting it in a box somewhere for paper to lose later on.
I fucking hate menial tasks in games. I used to always say this to Hall. I was like, Hall, you can give any job to Hall and he'll do it. Menial tasks, like repetitive tasks, he loves doing them. Whereas for me, I was just like, there's just no. It's just I just get bored. Like Minecraft is a tricky one because you need to do, as you say, you just need to go off and hunt for materials. Like you got no choice but to do that, really. And even in that, like it depends where you are and what you're doing. But it's like if you're getting stuff, there's a purpose at least. But I don't enjoy it. I couldn't say I enjoyed sitting there with my fucking Xbox controller, just mining into the world like horizontally through a fucking wall and trying to try. No, I didn't. And I also generally don't grind for achievements. Interestingly, and I know a lot of people do, but I don't find that outcome generally as acceptable. Like I like in-game outcomes rather than just a little thing popping.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting to see what people are willing to do in games versus reward, I think. Sometimes I like just to pick away at that a bit. I don't think I've got a hard and fast rule either. Like,
No. I mean, I was just thinking when you was talking about that was that State of Decay, which will be reviewed in the coming weeks. And technically, going out and just collecting, an absurd amount of resources is kind of like grinding, but you're doing it with the intention that it's going to make your life easier as it goes on. You're not going to run out of stuff. So you stock up on stuff and then you go, I can leave that for a few days now. The game does temper you in. It has a maximum amount of storage capacity. And if you go over that, things start to decay and you can improve the storage capacity and things like that. But again, like running around just picking stuff out of bins isn't, I don't think anyone sat down in the 80s and went, let's make a game where you pick through fucking bins to find resources, but that's become a core part of these survival games is, resource gathering. That's the part of it. And again, every resource you pick up is essentially making your life just 1% easier. So you're almost encouraged to do the menial shit to give yourself a foothold.
Yeah, I don't generally enjoy menial like resource management.
You don't enjoy going through the bins in the real life. Bloody hell.
Resource management in any sort of life is a pain in the arse.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not. I'll do things, but I like to get onto the meaty stuff. I'm trying to think of an example, but some things are real pain in the arse, like backpack and inventory space and management stuff. Like just irritates me in the way that sometimes games make you manage it. Like if you're going to make me do the menial shit, make it easier. And sometimes they even try and make that hard. They make some items stack and some items not stack and this and I'm just like, fucking hell. But would you grind for cosmetics?
No, I might grind. Maybe if I had some in-game currency, not like real currency, like there's a jacket I want, maybe. But to be honest, if it's a multiplayer game, I just really don't give a fuck because it's not immersive in any way. Because there's people rolling around disconnect. Like, it's just bollocks, isn't it? Maybe in an RPG like Cyberpunk, I kind of dress V up most days that I go out. I sort of try and get a new jacket on or t-shirt, but I don't go out and find stuff. I just pick shit up through looting people and randomly. I very rarely go to a shop and be like, oh, I want that jacket. And again, going back to making it comically easy, I've got so much fucking money that I could just buy anything I wanted. It's just the effort of me going to the shop now is too much. I don't even want to lift a finger to do that. So yeah, I'm not really cosmetic driven generally. Like it's weird because that's a multiplayer hook for many people, whereas I actually prefer it in a single player. Like if there's a new haircut to unlock, I might just do it, but very rarely do they put those things behind a terrible grind. It's usually just currency you've got to pay, which depending on the game structure is either easy to come by or not. I mean, what about you? I mean, you play a lot more multiplayer stuff than me, and that's a core kind of part of most battle passes. One of the several of the rewards will be cosmetic tutters.
Yeah, most of it because they don't want to lock obviously progression behind it, although Call of Duty technically do that with their guns. But I used to like it, but it's now oversaturated games where it's more about that. And I think like Rocket League, for example, I quite like the new cars and stuff, but they're not cosmetics because they have hitboxes that are different and stuff like that.
Okay,
so you have to be mindful of some of the hitboxes. But I like it. It just annoys me. Like pretty much if it's in a battle pass, it's not a grind. It's just a given. You just got to play. Like there's no way of doing it more. The grind is just playing it more. But if
that
you
is
play
the game.
it,
That is the game, though, isn't it? That's the battle pass. It's asking you to I mean, that's what I always think multiplayer is at its heart, is grinding, because it is the same thing. You know, it's variables because you're playing against other people.
I'm trying to think of an example. Back in the day, there was the golden camo on the guns, and you had to get X amount of kills with headshots, and you've got to do that sort of stuff. And
Right, yeah, like a challenge.
I quite liked doing some of the guns that I liked. I think I did it for most guns on like the COD 4. Yeah. And some guns are shit to use, and it was a chore. But I liked that. I liked a little bit of progression. There was something extra for me to do, and I quite liked that because it changes up your game play style and does things like that. I don't like things where it's like get 5,000 kills with this gun. Like it's like, well, there's no like I haven't got to do anything differently. I've just got to sit here and just kill endlessly. Like. Yeah. I think it depends what it is. Like if there's a challenge and it's a doable challenge, I'll go challenge accepted, and I'll like quite enjoy working towards it. But they don't do that anymore because it's just they just want your attention. I think more than anything now for longer.
Yep.
And it's all hidden away behind really tricky things to do and stuff that you wouldn't naturally do in the gameplay. So I think it depends how it's positioned, but I don't like that things are just unnecessarily hidden away behind ridiculously difficult or unnecessary grinds because the reward is, you can go, oh, I've got that. And someone knows that you've sat there for 50 hours doing a pointless task to get it. Like, do you know what I mean? It's just time sink, not skill or challenge based. I've ranted or said a lot of words there, but hopefully that made some sort of sense.
That's why these achievements are the way to go if you want the skill-based one. That shooting the pilot in Titanfall with a laser gun or whatever it was, you and Hall trying to get
Fuck me. That was a joke. I don't think I got it in the end. I don't think so.
I don't think anyone did.
What was it? You had to eject out the pilot seat and shoot.
You get to shoot a pilot out of the air basically after they've ejected from the Titan with a charged laser weapon that took a few seconds to blow. So it was a case of timing. I think I remember you two trying to go into a server on opposite sides and just sort of coordinate it, but still couldn't get the job done.
No, that's how hard it is. It's literally just a 1 in 1,000 shot that you would pull off, irrespective.
You know that some fucking bum got that by accident once. Like some absolute low skill player just aimed upwards and somehow managed to get it.
Yeah, they were like already on low health and like tickled his ankle and got it.
It was enough. But
I forgot about that. What a game that was, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, that was good. But
all dead now. Fucking innovation out the window. Wow. Yeah.
Anyway, that's the Fantasy Game League. So you're on 267. Paper's on 179.
We've covered nothing in this podcast.
2 versus 3. Done Top Gear. That's all people want. Grand Prix, Biff's on 251 with 3 games. Next is Salmon with 172 with 2 games. And then we've got Adkins with 90. Adcock with 89 with his Persona 3 Reload, and then Hall Parky on 0, and then Hall sitting on -5 because he's got a blank in his team. So that's that. Quick European sales data tickle up for December. EA Sports FC 24 was number 1. Modern Warfare 3 was number 2. Hogwarts Legacy number 3. Super Mario Bros. Wonder 4. Grand Theft Auto 5. Avatar Frontiers of Pandora 6, Red Dead Redemption 2 7, 8 was Spider-Man 2, 9 was Mario Kart Deluxe, 10 was Assassin's Creed Mirage. So apparently EA Sports FC 24 sales were down 11.5% compared to last year, but there was a World Cup last year, so that may have driven sales. Plus I think they lost a little bit from not having the FIFA name, but I still don't understand the logic behind people not finding it or buying that. But, it is what it is. But anyway, I'm not going to spend too much time on that because December's a bit of a strange old month. Something else that was reported this past week, several European retailers are reportedly no longer stocking physical Xbox games. This is due to, quote, really low sales of physical games. They've had enough of this nonsense, seemingly. Is this even a big deal? Or is it a bit of a concern that not stocking the game could lead to not stocking the console and you kind of cut off a Trojan horse for people getting onto this Game Pass. I know there's this phone bollocks that everyone keeps talking. I've yet to see it. I ain't seen it happening in real life yet. So until that happens, I'm not going to agree to it. But is there a slippery slope here where the margins on the hardware are actually quite low, that the retailers are like, we're not stocking any games here. The console's not exactly flying off the shelves. Just make way for more PS5s. And then Phil's left cap in hand going, oh, no, we do like physical games.
I don't really know. I mean, the simple answer is it's supply and demand. Like, so retailers are not going to use valuable, like, floor space to stock stuff they ain't going to sell, right? Like, that's basic economics. So, yeah, I mean, the argument is if they're not selling it, they will take it off. But everything is driven by consumer demand. So if it ain't there, it's because people don't want it. And like a lot of stuff, it'll just end up going if the majority, like if you vote with your feet, you vote with your wallet. That's the way to do it if you want to keep stuff.
Yeah.
If you ain't doing that, then you can't moan about it. Like, so I'm sitting here and I ain't bought a physical game for God knows how long. Take it away, that's my fault. Like, well, I can't moan about it because I'm not exactly endorsing it. But I think the direction of travel is quite clear on it, like longer term. And it's inevitable, like, that it's going to move digital long term, like everything has. Who buys a CD now?
It already has to a certain. I mean, the numbers are always there. It's sort of like, it's so high on the digital front that, you know, I think there's like an 80% share on Xbox. So, and bearing in mind, Xbox is the smallest platform out of like the big three, is what you consider. So 80% of the smallest platform don't go into the store to buy a disc. Therefore, what's left? You've got 20% of maybe 10% of the market. I don't know what the exact numbers are.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a very low number of people actually that's targeting nowadays.
Yeah, it is.
In no small feat to Game Pass, because like we've said many times, you just don't need to be going in there unless you want your physical copy of the game for other reasons. But even then,
Xbox will know this. Like, Microsoft will know by putting their exclusives on that streaming service that they are going to get lower physical sales. Like, it's obvious. It's a consequence.
What's happened here? The sales have fallen out the. It's part of the strategy.
Like, you've got a portion of people that are going to buy your games, i.e., the people that own your console. If you give them the option to stream or the option to buy, like, they're only going to be on one of those two things. And clearly, the direction of travel for Microsoft has been, we want you to go on Game Pass. So it's a no-brainer for a lot of people to do that. It's like, why would I go and buy a Starfield? Why would I go and buy any of these games when you've got them and you will keep them probably indefinitely on your library?
If you're paying if you're paying Phil indefinitely.
Yeah, but you know, but you then will get a small portion of people like Adkins who want like physical space. I don't want to use my physical space to store stuff I ain't using. Like, some people use it as a display thing, like in the same way I've got a Lego. Like, some people go, well, I like my games like that, and that's fine. And I get why people would want to, accessibility and all that sort of stuff. And Phil can whip it away from under your feet at any given point. But it's going to be the direction of travel. There's going to be a digital library of games that you can access. It's just how you access it. Said it a million times before. Game are going to go out of business. Inevitable. Isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean...
they've
pivoted to, like, merchandise and toys and things like that. But, yeah, I mean, even on, if you go on any platform... I think Nintendo's one of the outliers that has a stronger physical demand than the others, but still, you know, a lot of people jump on the digital bandwagon. And you know, the rumor is that the Xbox Series X will have a refreshed console sometime this year or maybe next year. It won't be necessarily a power upgrade, but it will just be like a new box essentially. But it's not going to have a disc drive at all. So at that point, if that becomes the de facto Xbox Series X as time goes on, well, yeah, that's it.
Digital purchase, or you can get on Game Pass. What do you want to do?
Neither. Next.
That's what they're going to give you the choice. But that's where it's interesting, is that they literally force everyone's hand.
Yep.
and you can understand why.
But if I'm a retailer and I make a lot of money from software sales, and they say I want you to stock this digital only console where people are going to come in, buy it, and then never come back to your shop, I'd be like,
do that or die.
yeah, well, they'll die anyway.
But do you know what I mean? Like they haven't got any choice. There is no choice. I mean, HMV's largely.
I
mean, look, I don't think it'll be interesting because music stores have largely died a death, and I think to your point, you've got people that like buying vinyl, like that's still going, and then it's basically merchandise and DVDs, and like it's basically for like hardcore or collectors and people that just particularly like physical, and they've got a business model, but it's not. I don't think you could say it's like growing or it's going to it's just leveled out. It's going to make money and that's that. But I think it's interesting that consoles, it's like, well, there isn't going to be another way long term to play them. As you say, if you take away, there's already diskless versions of consoles. Like it seems to be a direction of travel. I don't think people long term are going to get the option for.
No. It seems. It seems somewhat foolish in the short term to take that away from people, like take the option away. Do you know what I mean? Because even if it is just 20%, it's like, yes, you'll force some people over, but there'll also be other people that'll be like, well, if there's a PS6 that's got a disc drive, I'll go to that instead. Do you know what I mean? You're kind of...
I'll tell you why they're doing it. There's one reason, and that's because they don't want people... Yeah, they don't want people sharing games. They don't want me borrowing Spider-Man off Adkins. They want me buying it digitally on their...
Yeah.
But do you know what I mean, though? Everyone then, you can't trade games, you can't borrow games, you can't lend games. Everyone that wants to play it, it's unlikely they're going to do some sort of library sharing thing. Why would they? Like, it just forces people...
Do.
Yeah, no, but that's what I'm saying. Like, why would consoles do that? Well, maybe they would, but I doubt it. So all of a sudden, I've got to buy Spider-Man, or I've got to subscribe to their streaming service or whatever it is to be able to play it. So it's a way of increasing revenue ultimately, and I think that's why there is that direction of travel. Because if they've got you by the balls. Like, you can't. You're not going to sit there and go, "I'm not going to play Starfield." I mean, you might, but generally people will go, well, I either download it or subscribe or I don't play it. If they're the options, I'm going to do one of those two. I
mean, let's not forget the PC market has been digital decade or more. That's almost completely gone. So that's not been a concern on that side of things. And we've even seen certain games now doing digital only release, like Alan Wake 2, which we covered last year, Hellblade 2, which is Xbox, that's going to be digital only. It's not even going to be a physical version of that. I still think it's foolish not to offer that as an avenue at some point, because you're leaving potential money on the table. But the trouble is well, you're leaving something. I don't see how you'd not turn a profit by releasing a physical version of Alan Wake 2. Like, even if it's a limited run, you say, right, we're going to make 10,000 copies. We're going to charge. It's going to be a collector's edition, first of all, so we're going to charge more than what it's normally.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But then again, the trouble when you get to the stage of like a Microsoft or a Sony or a Nintendo, they say, oh yeah, we'd make 2 million on that deal. They wouldn't even wipe their arse for 2 million. So it's not worth. It's not even worth them to make 2 million if it means spending 2 months doing it. Like, it's got to the stage where you got to make big plays or nothing.
You're right. It's like,
I'll have the 2 million.
But it's like 50p in your pocket or so. It's
Exactly.
Like what's the point? As you say, I can kind of understand if they want to do, for PR or to satisfy the collectors, do a limited edition collector's thing. Like, I'm fine with collector's editions, but it's like bog standard edition of like physical games. Like, people, like, they won't care, and they're not losing. And what they might lose, like, a few people might go, well, I'm not doing it then out of process. They'll go, fuck I don't care. Honestly, like, I always think, how much must they have to pay a retailer? Like, distribution costs. Like, there must be a cost to do that. They'd rather not have. They'd rather suck up a few people that go, oh, I'm not buying it then.
When most clearly already don't care.
Will just change. Yeah, they'll just go, all right. Like, in the same way you did with Alan Wake, you go, well, I'll just get that. I want to play it. I'll get it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the ultimate thing, is that most people don't care. It's as usual, it's a loud minority. I'm not advocating for physical to go away, because I think having the option's good. because I've benefited it from Adkins, that fucking library.
This is what I mean. It don't suit us.
No.
Like 100% not.
But we still can still leverage it. So having it as an option is good. Whether it's important or not, I don't know. I think that's maybe not quite as.
I don't think it's important.
No.
I mean,
unless you run game, then it is important. But even that, game is stopping their trading thing policy. So that's another nail in the coffin, isn't it? You know, and they've just left CEX to have that market to themselves. Or you know what it is the rise of that Facebook marketplace. Adcock trades his games. And I just assumed he went to CEX or Game. He's like, oh no, I'll just go on Facebook Marketplace and I'll get probably a few quid more than what I would have done from Game. Don't have to drive to Game. Usually they come and collect it. Yes, you have to have dregs near you to do the transaction, which I don't think... It was talking about that 2 million not being worth wiping your ass with. I think that's not worth it in my view for 15 quid, having some... No. To deal with it, I'd rather just lose the 15 quid at that point. But Adcock's happy to do it. But like he uses Facebook Marketplace or one of those type jobbies rather than even interfacing with a shop. So even that's killing off a secondary market just by the virtue of social media existing.
Yeah. I think it's always had diminishing returns. Like as you say, back in the day, prior to eBay, even like when we were kids, this was the way to do it. It's saying that even then, I used to get games from boot sales and things like a lot of my Mega Drive games and all that sort of stuff were from boot sales.
Yep.
So even then, there was arguably a secondary market of that going on. But yeah, it's a tricky thing to be. It's a tricky thing to be involved in. Like as you say, like people will now go into game like a pretty new game and you get like £18 for it or something. You think, well, someone will buy that off me for 25.
Yeah, they will. Yeah.
Because they're reselling it for 35 in game, so everyone wins by it.
Well, Rishi might have cost eBay and Etsy because now you've got to declare those fucking earnings, and I'm like, well, who wants to? That's just going to drive more people to Facebook, isn't it?
Cash in hand, yeah.
If I'm reading that, if I understand it right, you have to declare earnings on eBay transactions now, and I'm like.
I think if it's over a certain amount or how you're running it, like if you're just selling a few bits,
okay, right.
I think they're fine with it. Like there's some exceptions, like if you sell a car, like they're not going to come after you for it. But if it's like if you're selling cars as a
business of sorts,
as a business, and that's how you're generating like income essentially, it's kind of a different thing. But
I'll let them come after me. I don't be telling them up front. They can find it, can't they? They got it's all there. It's all audited somewhere. They can dig it out of the fucking paperwork they've got on me.
Well, this is what I mean. It's like you can see all the bank account.
Yeah,
like, that's no secret anymore. No. Like you can see what's going in and what's going out.
If there's a problem, you contact me. I'm not going to go forward with this. Obviously, it's different if you're self-employed.
Then you get fined for doing it, and then you go, well,
you've had it for years, mate. I don't know when Starmer gets in, they'll probably forget about all that. That won't be a priority.
Well, we'll see.
We'll see what happens. Rumblings on the horizon. Anyway, what are we talking about? Physical. Yeah, that'll do. That'll do for the episode, actually. What should we do next? What should we go with? Control I've got here. So, we were talking about Alan Wake 2 a little bit earlier. A little bit of continuity there. I sat down and played Control Ultimate Edition. So, that's all the DLC included. Got the old Platinum Trophy, so people are going to be treated to that to close out this edition of Idle Game Chat. There'll be a short transition as usual, but as we like to say, we will see you on the other side. Here we are then, back with some game impressions to close out this edition of Idle Game Chat. You've got Apps here and Logan to close the episode out. I'm here to talk about Control Ultimate Edition. So not just the standard one. This was the current gen release of Control, which bundles in 2 of the DLC expansions plus some other toot to go along with it, be it outfits and shit like that. But I'll hand over to you. Obviously, if you want me to, I can start off with the store page to set the scene, but you may have other comments or queries before we get into that, so I'll allow you to dig into this and try and find out where you want to go.
Ain't Control the one with that actor?
Courtney
I don't know
Hope.
what I mean by that. He reminds me of an actor.
So Courtney Hope's in it. Now I don't know what Courtney Hope does outside of this, but she was in Quantum Break as well, and I think she has been in some other stuff. And I'm not the biggest TV or film buff these days, or I shouldn't. I don't be understanding what these celebrities are up to if they are indeed celebrities. But I think it's
Oh no, this isn't the one I thought it was.
Oh, chucked it.
No, so I'm pretty sure it isn't. What have I got confused by?
It's a very open question.
A lot is usually the answer.
Yes.
No, there is another game that I was thinking of with an actor in it. If it comes to me, I'll let you know. It doesn't make a lot of difference because I know what this game is. But for some reason, when I asked that question, I was picturing the front cover of this game. And it's done by the guy that did Alan Wake. Or is that Control? Yeah,
No,
I don't know. I've got my wires crossed here.
So
It's gonna bother me.
Remedy developed this. They've done Alan Wake and Max Payne and Quantum Break actually. But Sean, is it Ashmore? Who's Mr. He's the freeze bloke in the X-Men. He was in Quantum Break. So I don't know if that's what snarled you up in it.
No, it's not this.
I
do recognise that guy though.
Had that fella out of Game of Thrones as well. Is it Littlefinger? He was in Quantum Break as well. Because they had that. That's the one that had the live action piece.
We'll have to circle back on this. I'm thinking of a very specific game case. I don't know why it's coming to mind, but it is. But we will not detract this review any further away from a game absolutely nothing to do with this. So why is this getting replayed? Actually, let's do the store page. I've decided. We'll do the store page first, and I'll query it.
All right, fair enough. So store page, PS5 is what I played it on, so that's where I'm taking it from. So it's a long one, so I'm not going to do it all. There's a lot of dross in here. Control Ultimate Edition contains the main game and all the previously released expansions, the Foundation and AWE in one great value package. Well, I'll tell you, it was a great value package because it was a PlayStation monthly game, so even greater value for me. Experience true next-generation game with increased visual fidelity through 4K graphics, ray tracing and a 60 FPS performance mode. A corruptive presence has invaded the Federal Bureau of Control. Only you have the power to stop it. The world is now your weapon in an epic fight to annihilate an ominous enemy through deep and unpredictable environments. Containment has failed. Humanity is at stake. Will you regain control? And listen to this cockiness. Lights just went dim there, so we could have a power cut. Winner of over 80 awards. Huh?
80.
That's what they've claimed.
That's going to be like in the fucking Sun where they go Game of the Week.
Well, I've heard us talking about it and gone, Dimp's giving it something. We're playing that as an award. Control is a visually stunning third-person action adventure that will keep you on the edge of your seat. I mean, it's getting very marketed, isn't it? Here's the key features. You can uncover mysteries. Can you handle the Bureau's darkest secrets? Unfold an epic supernatural struggle filled with unexpected characters and bizarre events as you search for your missing brother and discover the truth of what has brought you there. Everything is your weapon. Unleash destruction through transforming weaponry and telekinetic powers. Discover new ways to annihilate your enemies as you harness powerful abilities to turn everything around you into a lethal weapon. Explore a hidden world. Delve deep into the ominous expanses of a secretive government agent. Explore the Bureau's shifting environments only to discover that there is always more than meets the eye. Fight for control. Battle a relentless enemy through exciting missions, challenging boss fights, and earn powerful upgrades that maximise your abilities and customise your weaponry. Original release date, the 2nd of the 2nd, 2021. Developed by Remedy, published by 505 Games.
I'm pretty sure I remember seeing this get played at some point on a stream. And it was interesting. I think it was that, because the word I was looking for was supernatural. And it all looked a little bit freaky for me.
Yes.
I could be cross-pollinating this with another game, but it feels like it was something Control related, where there was telekinesis and stuff going on.
Yeah.
So perhaps it was that. But what brought you back to this? Is this, and I'm going to guess, a precursor that you feel like you needed to do before Alan Wake 2?
That's part of it, certainly.
Yeah.
That's definitely a part of it. But also, I'd never played the DLCs that came out.
Right.
And in my head, I really liked this game. And for it to come back with a 60 FPS mode and all the, expansions put there, and for it to have been on a service that I had already subscribed to, pretty cost effective. It's been sitting there for years, basically. And I'm like, I've got to get through this. And then really what stirred me on was this Alan Wake 2 came out, started getting very good reviews. I was like, right, I do want to play that at some point. Let's just do the groundwork of Control, because there is an expansion that's tied to Alan Wake, in that it kind of delves a bit deeper into the mystery, and it comes up and it's got its own, its own expansion kind of dedicated to part of that story. So I thought it'd be good to do this, explore the new content, take advantage of the new frames, and see where I stand at a later date with this game. Because initially, having played the original, I did really like it, but the headline is I didn't love it as much as I thought I was going in. And that's not a criticism, because love is different from really like. But when you're looking at platinum standards, the word love needs to be kind of attached to the game. So spoiler, ain't getting a platinum.
Yeah, I don't think that's surprising. But how do you feel about?
But I was coming
DLCs?
in thinking it could be. This is where you got to be careful with it. In my head, I was like, in my head, I was thinking with the 60 FPS, this tie to Alan Wake, this new way of playing, where I'm going to dive deeper into the game and explore much more of it in depth rather than just skimming through the main campaign. This has some real potential. So in the back of my mind, it never quite got there. And I was like, that's interesting, because I thought for all the world that this was an easy slam dunk to be up in the real top echelon and have a chance at it, but never got close, really.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's an interesting initial thought. How do you feel about games being tied into one another, by the sounds of it, in the way that this is with Alan Wake, then?
I think it's cool in most cases.
Is it?
Well, yeah.
What if I didn't want to play Alan Wake? What if I didn't want to play Alan Wake?
You haven't got to play it then, have you? It's not. You don't need to know any of this stuff. It's not a need to know basis. It's like it's there if you want it. And Remedy have said that all their games are set in the same universe, so there's always going to be a litany of Easter eggs and references, and they reuse voice actors. Like the Max Payne voice actor is in Control. They reuse different characters and reference things. They're always being a bit cheeky, almost
MCU.
to the point. Kind of, but not shoved down your throat with garbage. It's just like, we'll make good to great games every few years, and then you're kind of satisfied with it. So I think if it's done right, it's fine. When you start requiring different, because Alan Wake 2 and Control are very different games. Alan Wake 1 and Control are very different games, as is Max Payne, as was Quantum Break. They're all quite different. And I can see people that are kind of more I guess not restricted, but people that don't really want to step outside their comfort zones won't necessarily want to play all those different types of games. Like, you're never going to play Alan Wake 2 because it's it's got horror elements to it. You probably didn't want to play Control because it's a bit spooky at times. Same with Alan Wake 2. But you probably would have played Quantum Break had that come up at the right time, because that's an action adventure, like a third person action game, no real scary shit involved. So that's, I guess, my thoughts on that. I think it's cool to do. But as long as you don't make it a necessity, and I think Control really is the centre point of this universe as well, which is why I kind of really like it, in that everything that kind of happens and goes on that's a little bit outside of reality is almost explained because Control exists. Yeah. Because Control basically sets up this version of the world where you have this Federal Bureau of Control, who are an agency that investigate paranormal and supernatural things. Yeah. And things like, urban myths and whatnot are in essence true in this reality. It's just that they're directly tied to this kind of supernatural element that doesn't exist in real life. So they kind of explain real life events through the world of Control using and harnessing their they call it paranatural. That's the exact terminology they use, which wound people up, I think. But these paranatural goings on, they kind of tie into the real world. They then hook in other stories from the other games, and they say, "Oh, here's an explanation of why it's happened." They do all the lore, all the groundwork is all here. So if you delve into the franchises and delve into this shared universe, it all makes complete sense. Like it's like, oh yeah, this is now really cool the way they've logically explained it. Obviously, it's paranatural / supernatural, so the term logical might not be relevant to some people, but it's a video game, so we're living in a different world here. So I think overall the takeaway from incorporating multiple games and multiple things is that Control is like the center of all this. So it's really fun to unpick those things and see how they've done it. But that does come at a cost, because there's a lot of reading in this game, there's a lot of notes, and if you don't be reading that stuff, you inevitably miss stuff, and that's a problem in many ways. Not for me, because I don't mind reading stuff, but I remember Adkins really liking this game, but had no idea what happened in the story because he weren't reading things. I mean, he can't read; it's not his fault, but it's one of those things. It's kind of its worst. It's almost its worst enemy, as well as it's kind of one of its peaks for me, in that it's so rich in lore and world building, yet the vehicle chose to give that to the player is through reading. But there aren't really many alternatives. This is the trouble, because it's quicker to read a little document than have someone tell you it, first of all, so it's a time thing. And you could voice things, like I know Mass Effect did that. That's really the best way to do it. Audio notes. And they do use these elements, but they lean so much on documents. Like, it's a ridiculous amount of documents here to read. Some are important, some are not, but it's one of those things.
Whenever there's documents or notes in a game, I just shelve them. I ain't getting read. I ain't there to read a book. I'm there.
It sounds
to
like
play
Biff, though, doesn't it, with these subtitled films? That's a very Biff-like comment. I'm not here to read a book. Do you know he didn't like... What's that one with, the robots in it, the old one? Blade Runner.
Yeah.
He missed the whole point of that film because he didn't read the opening little bit, setting it up. He went, well, I'm not here to read a book.
There's an optimum amount, is what I would say. Like, I always read the bit at the beginning of Star Wars, and that's fine.
That's the worst!
Yeah, but I'm fine with that, because it's setting up the story.
That is a literal book. It's a scroll, a shite.
It is a scroll, yeah, but it's not length of a book. Whereas
I don't know, that's what the
some
film
of these notes in a game, these fucking...
Too quick, that text. You can lose it.
Got to be quicker.
If you get left behind in that, you can't catch up.
You got to be on the ball. You know it's coming.
Wow.
It's an established thing now.
Do they do it for all the side to it? Like, I don't.
I think the Mando might have had it at the start of like the first episode. I think
there's one about a planet, isn't there, or named after a planet. I don't know. This is the trouble. The same with MCU. Gone on the drain.
A little. They did too much, as usual. Too much. Disney saturating the market. That's what they do.
I haven't anyway. Control of it all, didn't you?
So yeah, I think I prefer it when they talk and you can just carry on what you're doing. Like you'll go play an audio note and it plays whilst you run into the next bit or whatever. Like that for me is. What's that?
You ain't listening to that properly. It's just going through
subconscious level. No, it goes in. It all goes in. I ain't sitting there reading through 25 fucking notes on
25. It's just about 200 in this.
Yeah, I ain't doing it. So basically, it's fine. I'd rather have it in note form than not. But you don't. It's not the ideal format for delivery, especially if there's a lot of it. Is what I would say.
No, there's so much of it as well. I've got the platinum in this, and one of them is to pick up a stupid amount of documents. I did. And yeah, like I say, it's not
that kind of fits into the lore though. Like if you're investigating something, you are picking up breadcrumbs. So and not everyone's recording. I mean, how many voice logs do I call? None.
No,
write
exactly.
down.
It doesn't make sense. These voice notes. What's funny as well about the notes is that because you're walking around the FBC, the Federal Bureau of Control, depending on where you pick the note up, i.e., who would have had access to that note, it will be redacted to a certain level. So if you find it in a low-level canteen, by a low-level worker that presumably had access to it, a lot of it's redacted. It's got like black lines through it. And then obviously you find stuff that's in higher security areas and it's less redacted because their clearance is higher. I quite like that little detail of that. But
It's a nice
yeah,
little touch.
it's not ideal. I would, but you know, there's the alternatives are more voice notes and codexes like Mass Effect, which I think is the best way to do it. But you know, it's not the end of the world. You sometimes have to meet these games halfway if you want to be interested in the lore, and because there's so much of it. It really is deep. So get stuck in is what I say. Calm down. Stop rushing through things.
So let's pull this back a little bit.
No.
What is it about this game that you like? Like what is it, A, that has made you go back to it, and B, made you think that potential plats are on the cards?
Well, the plat I knew wasn't particularly difficult. I didn't know what the roadmap was, but I'm sure I'd heard.
Sorry, I meant in terms of grading.
Oh, I knew. So I remember really liking the setup and the story and the lore of it. And then I remember also really liking the gameplay, like just the core mechanics, the weapon, or the service weapon you get that you can change into different types of weapons. So one of the good things is you get one weapon, unlimited ammo, overheats. So that's sort of the restriction on it.
Yeah.
And you can swap it out into different molds of that weapon. So you can basically have a shotgun version of it. You can have a handgun, a sniper rifle, all that sort of stuff, and you unlock that throughout the game. And then you parlay that weapon with these powers that you get. So the one that everyone would have seen if you've looked at any footage is the telekinesis. So you can pick up objects and launch them at your enemies. You know, and you've got different enemies that are susceptible to being hit by objects rather than being shot at. And, you know, you've got this strategy that goes into it. So I thought, actually, it's got everything it needs, really. It's got excellent lore and story potentially there. Like, really unique in that sense. This paranatural setting, this beautifully crafted setup of a world. You've got the tie into the other games, which now I was more familiar with because I'd sort of brushed up on the older games to understand just the places, and because that's what they reference. They reference like Bright Falls, which is where Alan Wake takes place. And you're like, oh, there we go. And then you can pick up on things. And then the 60 FPS enablement on the consoles was a big thing as well, because one of the things that was a bit of a slug about the PS4 version that I played, or it might have even been Xbox Series, or Xbox One, sorry, was it was capped at 30 FPS, which was fine-ish, but for this game, I thought 60 FPS would really unlock it, like, and just give it a different level, and that level of slickness that you'll get switching around, dashing around and throwing things and shooting would just really upgrade it. So that's what I thought going in, and most of those, what I've said there is actually true, but the one thing I found that I'd forgot, clearly, or thought I was just better than I was, is that it's not easy, and I don't want it to be easy, but it got to the point where you are this all-powerful person. You're like adding abilities all the time. You're increasing your strength. You're putting ability points into trees and whatnot. And yet, when the going gets tough, i.e. you've got a boss, you have to play like a coward. Like, there were points where I was hiding behind things, cowering, chipping away at bosses. And I thought, this is just a complete... This goes against everything the game gives you to offer. You've got all these powers that you can control. And the great thing about the way the game's set up is the controller and the actions and the functions that you need to use all these powers are all easily accessible. You can use them all, you know, string them together basically with the shooting, with the other stuff. And when you get to a tough enemy, you just can't do that. At least I couldn't. You're constantly battling. Yes, it's a rewarding experience when you get past the boss, but I think it just puts too much pressure on you as a player. And I didn't feel like I was ever really felt like the true badass that my powers suggested I was. Like hiding behind waist-high cover, like cowering, waiting for my health to replenish, or just quickly pop up and shoot him once, and that's what it had to get to in a couple of the bosses and other encounters, because you're really squishy. That's the problem with it. Your character, you can build your health out, you can add mods, is what they're called, to give you more health or give you more health recovery, etc. But you take like 2-3 hits and you're on red and you're one hit away from death, and it's like, I don't know whether they thought this through. They felt like they tried to, for whatever reason, decided that making the game challenging was more important than making you feel like you were really firing on all cylinders. And that's where the main sticking point for me is just that it became a little bit frustrating time and time again. My patience is low for nonsense like that. But I just felt like that game was just designed just slightly too difficult. I could have tweaked the settings, couldn't I? In fact, you can tweak the settings at such a granular level and get rid of, like, choose how much damage your attacks do, how much damage the enemies. But I'm not going through all that. So you could tweak this into the game that I want, but default settings I always go with developers' intent, and that's what they served up. And I was like, I don't know, these people going, well, you're just a bad player, probably. But at the same time, I still think you take too much damage, so it doesn't really matter. You're going to get hit, and you're going to get pants pulled down occasionally.
Yeah, we've talked about this before, where there's this like fine line between the challenge.
It's heads up arses from developers. Oh, let's make this hard. What? Stop it.
I think you do want a sense of achievement when you do something. Like there has to largely.
But why can't it just
that.
be me just absolutely obliterating a room of it, like just absolutely just stringing all these moves together and just going bang, going, that is fucking. I don't want to be hiding from this thing. Ain't a stealth game, is it?
Well, I don't, you tell me. So,
well, it's not.
I guess if you think, I'm not saying it's meant to be real, but you ain't going to be.
Some of the nonsense going on.
Well, yeah, I know it's a tricky line to follow, but I guess there's a boss like that or bosses like that would be threatening to a human. With however many powers you've got, you'd have expected. Yeah, but I think broadly there's just a balance between difficulty and making something challenging at the right times. Because there's always some boss bullshit. In any game I've played, there's boss bullshit that goes on.
Yeah.
I don't think I can recall any one where there's not boss bullshit. Either because their attack is too powerful or because you have to fucking pummel them so hard so many times. Like, there's always some boss bullshit that goes down. But I like to know that there is a way of doing it, if that makes sense. Like, they've designed a way that I'm supposed to be doing it and I'm not doing it. I don't like it when I don't feel like the game has given me ample opportunity to like level up enough, or there's certain powers I need, or there's like a certain gun I should have picked up that I should have had. Like, as long as they get me there with the stuff I need and there's a way of doing it and I just have to figure it out, I'm okay. But I don't like it. I don't like it when things are just unnecessarily hard for no reason. Yeah. It's like, why? Like, why? You're not making me do. It just becomes a battle of attrition, and I don't like that. It's like, I'll just wear you down if I just sit here, or if I just come out and pummel you with this and then hide away. And like, there's got to be a mechanic or a way of doing something that is satisfying to get off. Essentially, I think is where I'm at.
Yeah, and it's what doesn't help is that some bright spark in the design phase decided that your checkpointing will be related to these very specific areas that are in the game. So each sort of level has maybe 3 or 4 control points, they're called. Yeah. And every time you die, you go back to this control point, the last one you've touched. So inevitably, as I've said this before with other games, where you've got a boss battle, okay, there's nothing else left. You just got to do the boss battle. Rather than putting you right outside the room or right next to that boss battle, it puts you back to the nearest checkpoint, which isn't always close by. I mean, it's not 20 minutes away, but it's still just a waste of 20 seconds running there. And sometimes it'll spawn enemies on the way there, and you're like, oh, fuck off. So that's completely random. So that doesn't help. Again, if I could just jump back into it and try again straight away, it'd be less of a faff and a hassle. But yeah, I mean, I look at something like Final Fantasy 16, which wasn't really challenging, but the bosses would push back, and there was a certain way of beating them. You'd work out their weakness in that, but throughout that, you felt empowered because you had all these cool, amazing icon things that you could do, and these summons and all this good stuff. Whereas this Control has its version of that, has a lot of cool things you can do, but you you just couldn't. It never felt like I was strategizing to beat the boss. It was more like I'm just staying out of trouble long enough to wear it down.
Yeah.
And it was probably three of the sort of side bosses that were some of the worst. And that coupled with the checkpointing, I think, just got up my nose more than it should have done. And sometimes the encounters you die as well. Like, it was just spawning a load of shit and you just get caught blindsided completely. And then before you know it, you're down on one shot before you die. And you're like, well, I'm in a real pickle here. Sometimes you claw it back and that's good. But it kind of, every time you're under pressure, you have to sort of shell up a bit rather than just going on the offense and picking up things and chucking bodies at people. There's all this tons of cool stuff you can do. And really, for the most part, you can. But for whatever reason, they decided to try and like block the player at certain levels with boss encounters that just get a bit messy as well. Like, it all feels a little bit random and a little bit messy. And sometimes the boss will be fucking impossible. The next time they fucking stand there like a Burk, and you're like, well, I've just got 3 easy hits here. So it's all a bit. It does just get a bit messy at times, and it's not a complete failure. But I just felt like they tweaked the game with a different philosophy of enjoyment, experience, and empowerment rather than challenge at specific points. I would have personally enjoyed that experience more because it does give you so many tools to unleash and to play on.
You want to talk to any of those fun tools?
I will. Well, I think the telekinesis one is the main one. Just be able to pick up objects and chuck them at people, pick up bodies and whatnot. I don't want to go into too many of them because I think some of them are quite late on in the game when you get them. Right. But needless to say, you'll get, the ability to shield as well and other exciting things and dash around. And you've got an energy bar that you kind of need to manage. And then you've got your director's gun, as I mentioned, a service weapon, which you can choose the loadout or I guess type of firing ability that's going to have. You've got mods that you can apply to each of the service weapon types or the service weapon molds, so you can increase the power, the accuracy, the rate of fire, whatever makes sense for you for that type of weapon. And then you've got personal mods that you can attach that will give you perhaps more energy recovery, that will give you more overall energy, that will give you more health, that will make the health pickups. There's no regenerating health over time. You have to pick it up by defeating enemies, so that's a conundrum sometimes. Do I go out to cover whilst I'm weak to try and pick up the health? You can choose to add a mod that increases that by 60%, so you need less of it. There's all this. A lot of experimentation is almost required. I think that's what I learned during some of the boss battles, is that you have to sometimes tweak your setup of your either your weapon loadout you're using and or the personal mods that make sense for that particular boss. Which I suppose in some ways is a good little thing to overcome, but also I'm not sure that was the silver bullet. I think I just got lucky eventually, and I don't think that was the real solution. It was just, you just eventually get through it as you do with many games. But yeah, that's all I say on powers. Let people find out most of it. It's good fun though. And the best thing is that the way the control scheme is set up on the controller, like, it's fantastic. You can access everything just from, you don't have to open up a fucking radial wheel and slow things down.
I was literally just about to say that. It fucking winds me up when it's like, hold on, let me just in the middle of battle just try and figure out which one of these, even if it like stops the game essentially, it's still just such a poor way of doing it. It really annoys me, those wheels. The
only thing you have to do if you want to change your service weapon to anything, you can choose 2 presets and switch between those. But if you want to change one of the presets, you have to go into the pause menu and do that. That's kind of the only restriction. But all the powers that you end up receiving, are just accessible with a button press or a combination of buttons. So that's for a game that's called Control. I don't know if that was on purpose. They really have made the controls of the game super slick. So once you get at one with those and start getting your combos in and figuring out what works and what doesn't work, you can absolutely do some devastating damage until you hit these bosses. And then you got to hide behind a bit of cover and pot shot them. Ridiculous. Tell you one boss, actually. There's one boss that fires things at you. It's in the centre. Can't get to it. You have to throw things at it.
Yeah.
Throughout the game, it will spawn minions as well. Another real botherance to me. If your boss fights aren't exciting enough on their own, then don't be spawning minions to make it more difficult. Like, make the boss more exciting. Slightly different in this one, because I think they think they're doing you a favour in that if you kill them, you'll get health pickups.
Health back. Yeah.
But I ain't buying that. You could just do it on damage of the boss and it could spit out the health packs, couldn't it? Like, every time you hit the boss, it could throw 3 of those out. Then you haven't got to worry about it. Any case, there's just 3 or 4 times I went through this process and I was like, right, I think I understand what I've got to do, blah, blah, blah. These minions that are coming out and they're the annoying explodey fucks, as I call the ones that run at you and just explode next to you. And because you're such a fucking squishy piece of shit, you just 2 of those and you're dead. Anyway, the time that I did it, those things spawned, but for some reason just ignored me. You know, when I was talking about the randomness and getting lucky, that's the time I did it. They went under sort of below my sight of vision and never came back. And because I never killed them, it never spawned anymore. So I was able just to annihilate the boss, dodge its attacks, and killed it. And that's why when I say about the boss battle is not really, yes, it was an achievement to beat it, but I didn't beat that one. It just, the game crapped itself and ended up giving me an easy ride. So I don't know what sparked that particular fault, but that boss in particular, I just remember thinking, I'm glad I'm past this. I didn't want to play it. I didn't want to keep doing this. But the way in which I got there didn't feel satisfying because I didn't get that I've beaten it, because I noticed those fucks were trapped underneath me and I was like, well, I ain't going to kill them because they're going to come back and give me a headache. So the game's own randomness tucked itself up there and I ended up walking through that one.
It's interesting how it is random like that because... Like in terms of giving people strats, or if you looked at a how to beat sort of thing, like I'm not saying everyone would have a different experience, but there's no kind of like, oh, these will spawn next, or oh, it will do this next necessarily. It's kind of a bit of a strange way of doing it. And for you trying to play that, you go, oh, next time they spawn, I'll know they're coming and I'll chuck this at them, or I'll do that.
Yeah.
And if for whatever reason that doesn't happen, or it happens differently, it kind of throws you, and you're like, well, which one of these scenarios is it going to be next time? Like, it's an unusual way of doing a boss fight. Normally things happen very sequentially.
Yeah. Well, I think they do. It's just that for some reason the AI on these minions got trapped somewhere they shouldn't have done, and therefore took them out of the equation. So one element of the fight was gone. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
That can happen, I guess. But that's my point. If you start introducing minions and you haven't got their AI sound, you're always going to have that risk. They fucking blow it for you. But in general, I'm totally against Toot coming along for the ride in boss battles. It's really a pet peeve of mine, along with fast travel not being explained, which, to Control's credit, they explain it. It's brilliant. Nothing special. They just mention it. Literally, it's a throwaway conversation you can have as an optional, and your character talks about, oh, I can teleport between these control points. You know, what's going on? And I was like, you shouldn't be able to do that. And they sort of recognise that there's something special about your character at that point. But most people won't even notice that. But the fact they had it in there, because I was using it and I was like, this isn't ideal, is it? We're just teleporting around the map magically. But it's recognised in the world. So I was like, okay, perfect. I'm using this little network they've built and we're travelling around. So that's what I mean.
Catering to Ronnie.
Well, they've got some people there catering to him. They've got others trying to annoy him.
Yeah. He's a tricky character to please, though, that Ronnie. You can't always get it right.
Just give me logic. Just explain things. Details matter.
So I think we've kind of broadly touched. I still want to dig into this, why you think of it so highly. So there's abilities and there's fun stuff to do, but why? What is it? You know, is it graphically amazing, or is it the story? Is it the lore? Like, what is it that makes you in your brain rate it so highly, or is it just a combination of everything? It's
the core mechanics. The action mechanics are excellent, and as I mentioned, the controls and how you act and use them are top drawer. Then you've got this super interesting lore layer dropped on top, which really, I think, adds to anything Remedy does now. There's always a way to tie it back to Control, which is clever.
Yeah.
It's funny, like it actually is a funny game, like, and it's quite dry,
Yeah.
But you essentially, when you're talking to characters, it will sometimes cut to the main character you're playing, and you'll get like her internal thoughts of what's going on, and they are just hilarious. She's like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, does he? And then he says something where he clearly doesn't straight afterwards, and you're like, yes, that's quite funny. But the characters you meet along the way are really good. It is funny, and it's really well acted in terms of the voice acting. So story-wise, lore-wise, character-wise, and then just core basic gameplay is really good. So it had the potential to really do some gangbusters type ratings, but it kind of let itself down a little bit, I think, with the overall design in terms of the difficulty being a bit of a spiking in areas that I didn't agree with, and the checkpoint is not a good idea. And I did have a couple of bugs where I had to restart a checkpoint because I'd killed everything in the room, but it hadn't recognised it. I think it happened twice, and that time it was fine. The second time it happened, I reloaded the checkpoint twice, did the encounter, it didn't work, and I was like, shut the game down, reloaded it, and it worked, and I was like, right. So just a little bit clumsy at times. Sloppy. I mean, it's been out long enough for this sort of stuff to have been picked up. You know, we're talking 2-3 years after it's been re-released. This sort of touch should be ironed out, but needless to say, I was unlucky enough to encounter it in my 34 hours of play.
Yeah. I mean, what can you say?
Sort it out.
It's there, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Well, it's not unfortunate, it's a bug, but...
yeah. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but I still had to do that encounter again, which was annoying.
Yeah, it's not what you really want.
No.
So, is there anything else you kind of wanted to call out here before we enter the gallery?
I will just say the expansions that I played through, like AWE is the one that's kind of related around Alan Wake, is good. Like, they introduce some new mechanics for you to do in terms of combat, and they lean into the darkness theme that Alan Wake has throughout his games. And then the Foundation is much more of a lore-based expansion about it's called the Old House, or the Oldest House, I think it's called, the centre of which the FBC is located. And you get a bit more story about that, and, you know, previous directors who had taken over that place. Introduces some new mechanics. You know, there's one where you can like bring out platforms of like these crystals that are in the Foundation area to platform over, and there's another one where you can shoot through, break the crystals to go through tunnels that you couldn't do particularly, and you can get access to those throughout there. But they don't change the game fundamentally. But they were both good little additions. Particularly the Alan Wake one. That's, you know, it's clearly there to tease Alan Wake 2, which is good to see. Like now when I go into that game, I'm going to have a little bit more, you know, understand of what's happened. And it was just kind of fun to play through those two bits, because that was all new content to me, and I was surprised how much memory I'd retained from my original playthrough. I kind of remembered almost everything in the base game. I was like, oh yeah, I remember doing this. Oh yeah, I remember doing. You think all that stuff evaporates way after a few years, but it hadn't. So that's about it.
Very nice. So you're happy to move into the gallery at this point?
Yep, gallery.
Okay. Well, do we still introduce the bin, or we're past that now, aren't we?
I don't know. I was thinking about this the other day. Because
about taking it away?
Well, because a bin to me is something that you throw in the bin because you haven't finished. You bin it. What do you think of that?
See, you don't like.
When we say someone's
need
bin
some sort
something,
of repository.
Just saying, a bin should perhaps be someone like Biff who gets halfway through a game and then bins it because I ain't playing that anymore. There's a way of recognising those shitters. I don't know. I haven't thought of anything else, so you know,
Right.
this
Bin's
ain't
still
going.
there,
This is going to get rated, so
This is not a concern.
not a
So I
concern
think
for
this
this
is a
one.
case of where it gets put in your gallery as opposed to in the bin. So I'll let you introduce that.
yeah. So Control Ultimate Edition on the
Did we
PS.
have it logged what you previously graded, or did it not get a grading?
I think
OG
I'm
review.
pretty sure I did. I can probably find it here if I can remember what fucking year it was. That's the main difficulty, trying to find.
Search across tabs. Cross-tab
Can you do
search.
that?
Yeah. When you do Control F and find,
Oh,
you
yeah,
can do
within
across
Sheets.
all workbook within Sheets. Yeah.
Ah. There it is in my replays projects. There it is there. Yeah. Oh, anyway, I gave it a silver last time.
Right. Okay. Interesting. That just sets the benchmark, I'd say, for what this might get. So, does Control get the same or better or worse? You'd be surprised if it managed to get worse, but remains to be seen.
It gets itself a silver. It remains in that silver
Oh,
category.
60 FPS, graphical upgrades, DLC, and it still sits on the silver.
Well, I did think by digging deeper into it, I'd get more out of it. And I kind of did,
Right.
but the
Not
short...
another grade stuff.
Yeah, not yeah. And, you know, again, it's one of those things where I'd set it up in my head to be better than what it was. And sometimes you just got to be honest and say, yeah, it was still very, very good. Was it great? That's sort of the word I always think in my head. Was it great to get a gold? No. Was it something that I'm going to love forever and ever? Not ever and ever, but for a long time to get a platinum? No. Therefore, it's still very, very good and comes highly recommended. But in my own personal ratings or rankings or gradings, it sits on a silver. And the expansions were nice and all, but they weren't blow away successes in terms of like, oh. So it kind of sits where it was before. Definitely the version to play though, or the PC version if you've got access to it, and comes recommended if you want just a nice out and out action game. Just, you know, hold on to your hat when you hit these bosses that they've decided to make more difficult than they need to be, because they will sting you and you won't feel like the all powerful badass that you've been throughout a lot of the game. You'll be humbled and be forced to hide and take pot shots at these fucks. I know, look, maybe I didn't use my shield enough, who knows? But I don't be trusting those shields, they break. So I don't want to get stung with that, and it uses energy. So that was one thing.
Hard to say.
Wow. I'm sure there's people out there that have annihilated it, but yeah, silver. Control Ultimate Edition. Close it down, shall I?
Yes.
Idle Game Chat is up for another edition. Nothing more for us to say other than thanks for your time and ta-da.
This was a Dimp Digital production.